The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a fiduciary, fee-based financial planning firm serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fed Life podcast presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll discuss the news and information that every Fed needs to know in 15 minutes or less-ish, unless I get wordy or something like that. So whether you're a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, Fed15 has you covered. So grab your coffee, energy drink, green juice, kick back, unless you're driving, and we'll tell you what you need to know or may have missed. We are your host. I'm Dan Sipe, and I'm joined by the singular Katelyn Murray.
Singular. Love it. Sounds independent, strong and independent.
And special.
Very special. Awesome.
Speaking of special, this is a fun week for me because, Katelyn, as you may know, my family was track and field family. Both my children went to college to throw shot put and discus. And we're in the World Track and Field Championships. And there's some really, really cool stories there just to share them with people so you get a little bit of my geeky side here. We have the men's and women's 100-meter champions right now. Noah Lyles and Sha'Carri Richardson. Just amazing. Funny thing, Noah went to school in this area. And I remember we went to a meet over in Virginia, and we had a really, really fast kid. And in the 400, Noah beat him by 5 seconds. I mean, that's a lot.
Wow.
So, just amazing playing a different game. Also, another amazing story. And this, I get it. It's not football, basketball, or baseball. But Ryan Krauser is just a shot putter for the ages for the United States. He almost didn't get to go to Worlds because he thought he had a calf strain, and it turned out he had blood clots in his leg. Yes. So recovering from blood clots, he threw a couple of fingers short of the world record. Just shattered the world championships record and just literally bits of a centimeter short of his world record. And last one here, because there's plenty more I could go to. Congratulations to Lala Tasaga Collins, who's a discus thrower. We have had an amazing run with women's discus. Valerie Allman is pretty much the best in the world. Well, Lala threw a 14-foot PR.
Wow.
And that is just a huge jump. So congrats. The championships go through this weekend, so by the time people see it, it'll be over. But folks, if you want to see some amazing stuff, set your DVR for world record track coverage each year, and you'll see some cool stuff. So there you go, Katelyn.
Very cool. There's probably also highlight clips on YouTube and stuff. That stuff amazes
100%.
me just because I have no ability sports wise. I can walk, I can hike, and I can lift weights, but not impressively. So that's always, especially the guy with the blood clots, that's a lesson in tenacity.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, we have a couple of interesting things kind of on the radar for Feds this week. We're going to talk pay caps, which I know is a popular topic, particularly for our Feds living in kind of more expensive localities. If that is you, then you probably are very familiar with this topic. Basically, if you are not familiar, the way that pay caps work for non-executive GS employees, political appointees, and level 4 senior executives, with the annual pay raise when things come through, the pay cap for folks who are near or close to the limit, when that across the board raise comes through in 2023, it was 4.1%. You basically get the step up of 4.1%, but you do not get any additional locality pay raise applied. So obviously, if you are not near that cap, you would get the 4.1 boost up, and then you would get the additional locality pay. Now, when we talk about the locality increases, it's not a small amount of money. On average, it's about 0.5% of pay, which, as you kind of advance that can be quite a lot of money. As it is, if you're at or close to that cap, you're getting the 4.1 across the board raise, but you're not getting the additional locality increase. So you can see how this hits areas with higher costs of living, right? Where we are in Maryland and the good old DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, Northern Virginia, San Francisco is another one. Employees in these areas hit that pay cap a whole lot sooner just because the cost of living is so much higher than in other localities where it's a bit more affordable. So there is a piece of legislation. It was introduced by Democrat representatives from the DMV. And basically this piece of legislation, it's called the Pay Compression Relief Act. And this would basically factor in the locality component when raising the pay cap with the annual raise, which would, of course, have the effect of giving our feds who live in impacted areas, in those areas with higher costs of living, and those who are, of course, at the higher end of the GS pay scale, a bigger annual pay raise so they could see the full benefit of the locality increase and that across the board increase. This could be a huge move for bolstering retention and recruitment efforts across federal agencies that I think, particularly as we kind of move into this digital era, which we've been in a digital era for a while, but with, the pandemic and everything and everybody kind of discovering work from home, getting a bit more freedom in that sense, it does kind of open folks up to being a little bit more of a digital nomad. And I think this is a potential attempt from the federal government to kind of address that, right?
Sure.
And bring a little bit more pay equity across regions where, if you're living in DC, it's definitely a lot more expensive than if you're living in, rural Texas or rural Louisiana. So this is kind of an attempt to kind of get those folks the locality increases that in those high income areas and high cost of living areas they so desperately need, honestly.
Gotcha. And pay caps stink. I'm just going to say that right now. I remember back in the 80s and 90s, we saw it with the senior executive service, and they just kept getting mashed up against this pay cap to the point that you couldn't find an SES 1, 2, or 3 in government because a GS 15 step 10 made more than those three. So there were tons of 4s. So it's something that just needs to be addressed. Our feds work hard. They do important work. And just putting in these weird rules that say, oh, well, you don't get the whole thing because you live here or because you're in this position. It makes no sense to me.
Absolutely.
I should have worn my black t-shirt for this. I should have worn my black t-shirt.
These are ramping up, folks. No, but really, when you consider the pay cap for 2023 is $183,500, if you're in DC proper, it goes fast. It goes really fast with the cost of living and everything. So yeah, hopefully that Pay Compression Relief Act, we are, we don't get political, but we are obviously in support of that because it supports our feds, and it definitely helps out,
100%.
Particularly when those folks are near the cap. So
Absolutely.
We are also talking annuity stuff today, right, Dan?
Yeah. And it's answering a question, which is, can you take your annuity as a lump sum? Time was you could you could take all of your contributions back in the day and have those refunded to you in lump sum, and then you just had a lower annuity. That changed. Well, now we have the alternative annuity benefit, and I'll say right here, I hope none of our Fed listeners ever get to use this because you need a life-threatening illness or other critical condition. So I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But it does give you the opportunity to take a lump sum. Okay. OPM determines the eligibility process. It can only be done on a non-disability intermediate annuity, not postponed or deferred. Your spouse has to consent. A doctor has to certify. Speaking of spouse, survivor benefits are not affected. So it's calculated by taking what the pension amount, whether it's CSRS or FERS, then dividing by an actuarial figure that's based off life expectancy. Okay. One nice thing, any unpaid deposits for military temporary service are deemed to be paid. Okay. So that's a nice feature. Folks, don't try this at home. Okay. Because like anything else, there are tax implications to it. And OPM is going to withhold 20% when disbursing the lump sum. Now, you can choose to roll that over, But with that 20% withholding, you're going to have to make that up if you want to avoid a taxable benefit. So not giving tax advice here for my compliance department, not giving tax advice, just saying consult your advisors before you take a swing at this. Seriously, don't try it at home. And further, hope everybody listening to this never needs to do it because of having those particular challenges.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that this, talking about this type of thing it's just so indicative of kind of what we do at Serving Those Who Serve with knowing the entirety of federal employee benefits, right? So it's not just the meat and potatoes. There is no cookie cutter solution for anyone in financial planning, Fed, non-Fed, whoever. But it's important to know about these kind of niche topics because unfortunately, while we hope that this never happens to anybody, the Fed population is huge, right? Mm-hmm. And just Dan, you used to work in insurance, actuarial tables, population statistics, the reason this exists is because folks do need it. Some people do need it at some times. And so knowing about these kind of more nuanced pieces of your federal employee benefits plan is powerful. Again, hope you never need it, but working with an advisor who kind of knows the ins and outs is useful in those situations that are not planned, right? We love to help clients plan for the good stuff, to plan travel budgets and second homes and buying RVs and exploring the world. But, sometimes it's about planning for the stuff you don't expect too.
Sure. And to your point, Katelyn, let's give a shout out and show some love to our very own benefits Ben. Ben is a real person. He's on the team.
He's really named Ben.
Yes, and researches all of this stuff and is just pumping it out every single week on behalf of our feds. So, thank you for that, Ben. Appreciate it. Much love.
Yep, all about the team. It takes a village, folks. It really does, especially when it comes to federal employee benefits because there's so much. It takes
a village to keep Dan on time.
True, but I think we may have managed it today. So let me wrap up before we.
I muscled myself early on World Track and Field because that could have just taken on a life of its own.
I'm very proud of you. You did.
I didn't get to women's hammer
quite well. Yeah, we didn't quite get to ESPN coverage level commentary,
and not on the Ocho either. ESPN one.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, that does it for us today, folks. But of course, we will be back next week to bring you all the latest updates and news that you need to make informed decisions about your career and well-being as a Fed.
Absolutely. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast on the YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. And please remember to share it with your friends and colleagues and even throw in a couple of enemies. It'll pass an olive branch. Extend an olive branch so that there can be peace everywhere over helping all feds.
Good karma. I love that. For those who are not YouTube people, we are also on Spotify. So if you have the Spotify app on your phone, you can search us up there and then you'll just get the audio. You don't get to see our beautiful faces, but we'll forgive you for that. You get the information.
Well, half of us is beautiful, Katelyn. And that half is also singular.
For more information on the topics covered in today's show and more, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. While you're there, also take a chance and subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, to get all the latest news for feds delivered straight to your inbox every week. This is for our readers, folks who kind of are visual learners, right? You may hear us talk about it on the podcast, but you may want to dig deeper, maybe get some explanations or examples, particularly with that pay raise stuff we were talking about. It can be a little hard to get conceptually, so you can kind of dig deeper on the blog there. Also, we have additional articles that come out that we don't necessarily always get a chance to highlight on the Fed15, because sometimes there's just a lot going on in the Fed space. So be sure to check out the Weekly Serving for all the added content there.
Absolutely. And for those who want to take an even deeper dive into learning about your federal benefits and financial planning for feds, please join us for one of our complimentary webinars. The ones coming up, we're going to have Understanding FERS on September 6th. We're going to have tax planning, which is always amazingly popular, on September 12th. And another one that is always hot property is our TSP planning That's on September 20th. Or if you prefer a one-on-one approach, feel free to reach out to our team directly for a financial planning consultation. You'll meet with a fiduciary financial planner that has expertise in federal benefits. That's at askstws@stwserve.com.
Awesome. And that TSP planning webinar, just saying, yours truly is hosting that. So if you do pop by, let us know in the chat that you came from Fed15.
How can you pass that up?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to Fed15, guys. I am Katelyn Murray.
And I am Dan Sipe.
And we will see you next week. Be well.